And welcome to another fun-filled episode of that 401k podcast. Ary Rosenbaum here. Uh, this week's episode is going to be Aryisms. Um, really, some ideas that I have about business, especially the retirement plan business, as well as other sayings dealing with life and whatnot. It's adopted. I had a chapter on it in that book that nobody bought, the greatest 401k book sequel ever, which is available for purchase on Amazon.com in both print and Kindle edition. Please purchase. A lot of great stories in there. Tips for you as a retirement plan provider. If you're a retirement plan sponsor, there's some interesting and funny stories in there. Um, and of course, one chapter is called Aryisms. And, one of the things that I think people don't realize is that Ary Rosenbaum, Ary is actually misspelled. The proper spelling of the name Ary is Ari. I'm spelled Ary. And thankfully, it's spelled incorrectly for, this portion because Aryisms, if it was Aryisms, it would be Ariisms. The reason my parents misspelled my name is for some reason they thought that people would think that I was named after Aristotle Onassis. And of course, we're in 2020. I don't think anybody remembers who Aristotle Onassis was. So anyway, before we talk about Aryisms and some of the lessons in life that, as 22 years now as an ERISA attorney, uh, we'll talk about those lessons that I've learned in this episode. But before we get to that, of course, this is the time of the episode where I have to shill for my conferences and my events. That 401ksite.com. Go to there for information on all of my events. Our very next event is at 4K National Conference. It's really coming really, really soon. I realize that because I'm quite the tensest, as they say. March the 10th to the 11th, Walt Disney World Swan. Tickets, of course, are available. For those in the know, we still have a select group of T-shirts. As long as they last, purchase a ticket and you will get a shirt. As I would jokingly say, great to wear, great to wrap fish. You go into there, you'll find out information on that 401k National Conference. Discount tickets to Disney World. We got 4 Disney parks now. We've had it for quite some time, but now we got the Hollywood Studios updated with Toy Story Land and Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. You can go to that site at that 401ksite.com for the Disney event. You can, from there, purchase discounted Disney park passes, about 25 to 30% off, based on that peak of the year. You can also go there and sign up for the hotel at a discounted rate. I think it's $275 a night at Walt Disney World Swan, as well as further information as it's being updated. If you check on LinkedIn and Twitter, you'll see some of the agenda items that have been added, some of the speakers that we're having. As it stands right now, as I record this, you'll hear this, a week from now. We just booked one of my childhood idols as one of our guests on the second day of the event. Hall of Famer Goose Gossage. As a kid growing up in Brooklyn in the 70s and early 80s, obviously, the goose was loose. Heck of a reliever. Finally made the Hall of Fame after trying for so long. One of the most dominant closers in Major League history. I'm really happy to have him there. We always have great guests. Of course, that's subject to him not canceling. In the past, we've had, I booked some athletes, and for some reason or another, they backed out. Lee Smith was, I think, the original guest for Chicago, and he backed out. And we got Andre Dawson instead. The same thing happened to another one of those events. I think it was, Kansas City. We were supposed to have Hal McRae, and instead we had Danny Jackson. So this happens. So after the Walt Disney World event, which of course is now being sponsored by quite a few more businesses, obviously Franklin Templeton, we thank them for their support, getting more and more sponsors that we get closer to the event. After Walt Disney World, April 17th, we will be in Houston, Texas, Minute Maid Park. There'll be a game that night against the Angels. May the 8th, St. Louis, Busch Stadium, game against the Mets. as well as the event in Minneapolis on June the 5th, I believe. And that'll be another game, I think, against the Angels. So go to that 401ksite.com for further information. $100 gets you into the local events. $500 will get you into the national event. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we hope you can join us. So anyway, I'm not like any other attorney. I just, I always preface that because I never saw myself as just the attorney. I think when you go work for a law firm and you see the other attorneys, and these are people who are just attorneys, they're not business people, they are attorneys. They don't understand, at least where I was at this semi-prestigious law firm, uh, you had people who just all they knew was how to be a lawyer. They didn't know how to be a business person. They didn't know how to deal with people. I mean, that's how I felt with the majority of the lawyers over there. Um, and I wasn't like that. I never talked down to the guys in the copy room. They were probably my best friends. The office guys were always my best friends wherever I worked. I was just, I never looked down on people. I never treated people badly. I always tried to give people the same level of respect that I wanted. And of course, when you're working with law firm partners, you're never going to get that kind of respect. But you give it and you hope for a return. But I'm really opinionated. That gets me into trouble a lot. Um, you know, Jokingly, sometimes I would say I'm the turd in the punch bowl, in the sense that I will speak my mind, and a lot of times, really, people don't like that. I have a great audience in the 401k marketplace because I have these opinions. How many people have come to me over the years and said, you know what, Ary, I loved that payroll provider TPA article. I use that wherever I go, and I'll hear that from TPAs. I'll hear that from advisors. That's the most loved article I've ever written. But I've never gotten a referral from Paychex or ADP. I've gotten threats from some of these payroll providers. I've received some crank phone calls from them. Well, not from them, from one of their employees. But opinions cost money. Many years ago, there was a financial advisory firm out in California, pretty well known at the time, and one of the advisors was looking for an attorney, and he was looking either at me or a very well-known national attorney. I will not say that person's name. You know who that person is. But anyway, that attorney didn't get back to them, and it was told to this advisor that attorney was at this insurance company's headquarters because he's their risk attorney. And so the advisor says, you know what? If he's that insurance company's attorney, I'm going to pick Ary. So listen, you have opinions, you say your piece. People don't really like it, but it is what it is. So here's going to be a list. Going to read it and just give my insight here and there where it needs to. Some of the things that I believe in dealing with retirement plan business, dealing with life, dealing with nonsense. Number one, when it comes to retirement plan business, the most important plan provider that a plan sponsor can hire is a TPA. I say this as an ERISA attorney. I say this as somebody who works with financial advisors all the time. The most important provider out there is the third-party administrator. Next, you can build a reputation over a lifetime and lose it in a minute. Just ask Jeff Ritchie. Just ask Matt Hutchinson. Just ask people who make big mistakes. I mean, that's criminal mistakes, but I won't say they're mistakes. They were intended, but there are people who make mistakes all the time. We see that in business and we see it in life. Bill Cosby, he lost it. Whatever respect that we had over the years, it's gone. Next, this is a really important one to me because it's one of my mantras in life. The worst thing you could do is to give people. The worst thing you give people is false praise and false hope. And I just hate that. If someone's not good at something, say it. And I think the worst thing to do is give somebody false hope. We see in business from time to time, I've seen it, where someone promises to make me rich. People who promise me to make me rich in the retirement plan business haven't made me much money. Actions speak louder than words. Don't promise the moon and fail to deliver. I see that from time to time. Even with running these events, I'll get you such and such a sponsor. This, and that, and then there's like no sponsorship. Don't promise. Say, you know what? I'm going to talk to so and so. Maybe we'll get whatever. Talk in not in absolutes. Talk like a Sith would, but talk in ways so you could back out when it falls through. And don't count your eggs before they're hatched. Nothing's a sure thing. Everything is about possibilities. Next on my list, this is for my buddy Matt Hutchinson, who's in federal prison. A fiduciary wanting to steal plan assets has a better chance putting pantyhose on their head and robbing a bank. I never understood the whole Matt Hutchinson situation to this day. Why he thought he could steal $3 million and most importantly think he could get away with it. As a fiduciary, it's all about fingerprints. And if a fiduciary steals money, there's fingerprints all over the place. And when you have an independent custodian, a third-party administration firm, and employers, it's a system of checks and balances that I don't understand why somebody like a Matt Hutchinson would steal millions and think he could get away with it. Another one, it's better to compete on value than on cost. We see that, of course, in the 401k plan business. Next on my list, you can write a plan provision that way, but good luck trying to administer it. That came from a time when I was the ERISA attorney for a third-party administration firm. An outside attorney drafted a matching provision for a plan document. I read the amendment. It was in gobbledygook. It was very hard to understand, and I told the conversion specialist, I know what he was trying to do, but good luck trying to administer it. Next on my list, the most difficult clients are non-ERISA attorneys because they think they know ERISA when they don't. That's just dealing with attorneys. They think they know everything and they don't. I'm the attorney who knows that they don't know everything. Next, the most poorly run plans tend to be sponsored by professional services businesses because they're just too busy. Lawyer plans, doctor plans, those seem to be the worst. Next, it seems that the only businesses that offer self-directed brokerage accounts are, again, the same type of businesses: doctors, lawyers, and accountants. I used to say that as a joke, and then every advisor I ever said the joke to said, you know what, it's not a joke, it's actually true. Next, a fiduciary warranty is worse than a life insurance policy that pays only on accidental death. I don't see many fiduciary warranties anymore, but I know there's one provider out there. They do that. It's just gobbledygook. At no point is a fiduciary warranty ever going to be acted on because plan sponsors don't get sued over the provisions that a fiduciary warranty covers. Next, this is all about revenue sharing. Revenue sharing is like payola, and it's only legal because it hasn't been made illegal. Revenue sharing is like a kickback. Revenue sharing is like payola. Revenue sharing is not illegal only because the law hasn't made it illegal. And, many years ago when I was working for a producing third-party administration firm, I said, revenue sharing is a kickback. Revenue sharing is payola. Revenue sharing is going to eventually end. And there was one plan administrator who said, oh, yeah, sure, will. And of course, history has proven me right. Revenue sharing is like leprosy. It's shunned. Or like a leper. It's shunned. People don't like it. So it's going to go the way of the 8-track tape. Next, once in a while, someone fights back. I think that's from a line from a poster that I had for many years that I lost in the hurricane and then I have since replaced. It's from And Justice for All. Nice picture of Al Pacino in jail. But once in a while, someone does fight back. Next, in similar vein, don't pick a fight with the wrong person. Bullies learn that often when they pick on somebody who will stand up and defend themselves. Never let anyone have the power to put you down. Never let people have the power where they could just knock you down in business and in life. don't allow them to have that weapon. And if they have that weapon, make sure they don't use it. People who promise you the world rarely deliver. That's similar in vein to that false hope. This is good for people my age, but a Department of Labor audit is worse than a colonoscopy because you're not sedated. I've been through just a few months back, finally completed a dual audit that was going on for about a year. A lot of fun. Fun. Next, a class action lawsuit is the least of a plan sponsor's worries. Unless you're Trader Joe's, unless you're a mutual fund company, unless you're Exxon Mobil and Microsoft and a large corporation, your biggest threat is going to be a Department of Labor or an IRS audit, in my opinion, just on experience. Next, you can't dabble in retirement plans. And that says for financial advisors, back in the old days before, the whole fiduciary movement, there'd be, brokers or advisors who'd have one or two plans and they didn't know anything about retirement plans. And we've learned that that's really a poor model of service for financial advice. Next, blaming 401k plans for a retirement crisis is like blaming things on inanimate objects. 401k plans did not make defined benefit plans go away. They are a tool. They are an instrument, like anything else. It's like my golf instructor, Kenny, would say, a golf club is just a tool. A 401k plan is just a tool. A 401k plan did not create a Social Security crisis, did not tell businesses to stop having pension plans. That wasn't the fault of the 401k plan. That was the fault of a whole host of other things that we probably would have to talk in macro and microeconomics. Being a law firm partner means you never have to say you're sorry. I'm a law firm partner, I guess now, but I'm in a law firm of one, so I don't know if I have to say sorry to myself. But being a law firm partner, I've never met a creature who thinks they're. I don't know. Half law firm partners, I always say, I used to have a 50-50 rule on law firm partners. 50% are great. 50% you wonder how'd they get this job. Like I said, with a law firm, 50% of the partners are great attorneys. The other 50% you think they might be related to someone else. And that was true in my Swazi. Worked with some attorneys, and half the attorneys are like really good, and the other half you're like, whose family member are they? That's what it felt like. When it comes to drafting plan provisions, KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Don't be cute. Don't be funny. Keep it simple so that everybody understands. Plan sponsor, plan administrator, everybody. No matter how they spin it, the two biggest payroll providers are lousy TPAs. Next on my list, you never steal business from people who refer you business. That's bad business. You develop a bad reputation that way. And the last thing you need as a retirement plan sponsor is a bad reputation. Next, unlike peeing in a pool, a bad reputation will actually follow you. After that, you can't fire the boss's spouse. That happened many years ago when I was working for a TPA, and there was this really, he was a senior administrator, and he really wanted to control the place. He really wanted to run it. He was really ambitious, and he suggested that the boss's wife, who was the HR director, get fired. So, needless to say, he got fired first. You can't fire the boss's spouse. You can't fire the boss's kids either. Nepotism and family business is okay as long as the kids aren't morons. You should collect good TPAs like you collect baseball cards. Unless, of course, unlike TPAs, you don't grade. Well, unlike baseball cards, you don't grade TPAs. The two top payroll providers are two of the biggest TPAs out there, which reminds me that Bud Light is the best-selling beer in America, which of course means that being popular doesn't always mean good taste. Yeah, Bud Light is best-selling, but if you have a choice between Bud Light and Sam Adams, you're picking Sam Adams. I'm a patient man. That's what happens after spending 22 years straight in school. That's off a joke on Meet the Parents. I think that was Robert De Niro. How many years he spent as a POW in Vietnam or whatnot made him a patient man. If it wasn't a struggle, then it wasn't any fun. The power to bill by the hour is the power to destroy. The power to bill by the hour is the power to bankrupt. That's why I don't bill by the hour as a risk attorney. Never let bad people change you. If you do, they win. Don't hold a grudge if it's going to cost you business. And I see that from time to time. Personal nature. They won't refer you any business anymore, and the person who's just doing it out of spite is cutting their nose to spite their face. Uh, no matter what, if you own a business, your employees will never have the same dedication that you do. That comes off the fact that I was working for a TPA, the partner in the firm, a miserable man, probably the most miserable man I ever worked for. I remember one time it snowed 7 inches, and he was complaining when employees were late and didn't show up to work. I was here at 6 o'clock. Manny, you own the damn business. Of course you're going to show up. I don't own the business. But, he didn't understand that. Whatever. Just because someone is employed by you for so long doesn't make them loyal. Maybe they have nowhere else to go. Never mix loyalty with longevity. Sometimes people are there because they have nowhere else to go. For most businesses, the defined benefit plan has gone the way of bell bottoms and Betamax. But for a lot of other businesses, small businesses generally, defined benefit plans are the greatest thing, since sliced bread. Even though I don't think sliced bread is such a big deal. The mid-sized law firm is one of the most poorly run businesses. I say that as it stands. That law firm that I left, it's half the size of when I left. And that's because it was poorly run. I learned why people hate lawyers. I did that by just going to law school. That's a fact. Not everything comes back in style. Leisure suits and ruffled dress shirts never did. That shows you I was a kid of the 70s. No matter how you try, it's almost impossible to change the culture of a place. Whether it was at my old synagogue, whether it was at a TPA, whether it was at a law firm, the culture cannot be changed unless you're the owner or, it's just impossible. If you're just an employee or a higher up, it's almost nearly impossible to change the culture of a place no matter how much you try. Because there is a bureaucracy over there that wants to stifle that change. Next, you can't cut your way to prosperity. That goes to businesses, that goes to, organizations. Cutting your way doesn't make you bigger. It's like in the army. You don't win. I think it was the Battle of Dunkirk. Wars are not won by retreats. Everybody was heralding the miracle of Dunkirk. It was, as Churchill would say, it was an evacuation. It was a retreat. You don't want a war that way. So you can't cut your way to prosperity either. Anyone can cut costs. Growing a business takes talent. Next, you can only keep down talent for so long. Eventually, it's going to rise to the top. Don't blame the narcissist. Blame their enablers. You see a lot of bosses, a lot of law firm partners. They're narcissists. And, the problem over there is, they can't be helped. They have a personality disorder. And there are a group of people who, kind of support them along the way. Those are the people who deserve the blame, the enablers. Allowing multiple loans on a 401k plan is a recipe for disaster. I've learned that from time and time again. Next, enrollment meetings should be as fun as exciting as funerals. 22 years in the business, and I want to say that one thing that hasn't changed are the dryness of enrollment meetings. If insurance companies insure risk for money, what does it say about the fiduciary warranties they gave away for free? That's always a running joke. I think it was a good buddy of mine who was a DCIO for one of the fund companies out here in New York. That was his line. I don't want to say his name to embarrass him, but it was a great line. That's a fact. If it was worth something, they would have charged for it. Next, a monkey can pick an investment lineup, but they can't give participant education or advice to participants. And that's always been my rule. Advisor picking funds is the least of what they have to do. You don't need a profit to make a profit-sharing contribution or have a profit-sharing plan. That's a running joke because, the whole idea of a profit-sharing plan, it's a weird name when you don't really need a profit to have one. So every 401k plan is a profit-sharing plan. Not every profit-sharing plan is a 401k plan. That's a tongue twister, but that's logic. You can see clearly as long as you open your eyes. People who have their eyes shut can't see the distance. They can't see the future. When they blame demographics for failure, they're just making excuse as to why they failed. So, when my local synagogue would say, oh, well, they're changing demographics, that's why we're losing members. No, that's just an excuse. You're losing members because you treat them, as if they don't matter. Um, you can bring in members from other local communities. You just can't use demographics as an excuse, because if you're citing demographics, you've lost, because you can't change demographics as much as you would like. When you're surrounded by the same people who caused the problems in the first place, hope is pretty much lost. When I was synagogue vice president, trying to save the place, and then I realized I was surrounded by the same folks who took a synagogue with 700 family members, 750 family members, and brought it down to 250. What chance did I have, uh, you know, to fix that place? History easily repeats itself if you miss the signs. Next, success and life are great things, yet there are people who choose failure and death. One of my favorite scenes in the movie The Poseidon Adventure is when Gene Hackman goes to Arthur O'Connell. Gene Hackman plays a pastor, a minister, and I believe that Arthur O'Connell plays a priest. Um, and Gene Hackman was telling him to come with them and live. Why should you die here? And Arthur O'Connell's like, I sense we're gonna die, but I can't leave these people. And I just love that scene because Gene Hackman's like telling him, like, if this is how it is, then what's it all been for? Life is, life and living. It's a really precious thing, and make a decision when you have a chance uh, to pick life. And I don't mean between life and death. I mean like changing businesses and whatnot, where, if you go one way, the business is going to change for the better. You go the other way and stay there, the business is going to die off. Always choose life. Next, arrogance is one of the largest ingredients for failure. Next, what worked well in 1980 may not work well in 2020. Next, for some people you work for or you work with, all they really care about is protecting their spot. That goes back to my buddy Manny. He was the CFO. He surrounded himself with really incompetent employees. He bothered employees like me who did a lot of work, and the reason he did that was because he wanted to protect his spot because he was incompetent. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Next, there are people who will take advantage of you. Never let them change you. Next, if it won't draw a dime of business, don't bother. When I was at Meyer Swazi, we had this. Guy was a. If you read in the book, he was a miserable man. He was the like the he tried to, he was a law firm administrator. He was a miserable guy, and I remember I wanted to get my articles published by the marketing department, but instead the marketing department was afraid of him. They were publishing his articles about law firm administration, and it didn't draw a dime of business for the law firms. So that's where that line came from. Networking isn't about selling your services; it's about starting relationships. And building relationships through networking is like planting in a garden. It's going to take time to grow. Right off the bat, I was on LinkedIn, and I'm the plan sponsor of a MEP. And I just linked in with somebody on LinkedIn, and the first thing is, "Oh, can we talk about this MEP that you're the plan sponsor of?" And I'm like, "I just met you, and now you want to boot the long-term consultant on the plan?" I mean, it's just the uh, too fast to the hoop, as they would say. If it would, it's like, I don't know. To me, networking should be like a dating process. It should take some time and get to know you and whatnot. Don't go right out of the box selling. Building relationships through. Okay, I'm sorry, I lost track. Next, they're not doing God's work. I don't care what kind of TPA work people are doing or what kind of services. They're not doing God's work. Next, most people are in it for themselves. It's true. An actuary is great if you can actually take them to a client meeting. I've known too many actuaries over time that you really couldn't. Next, better to get shot in the stomach than stabbed in the back. At least you see it coming. If you want to kill something, send it to a committee. I used to joke that about Lois at the law firm I used to work at. If you had a great idea and she wanted to stifle it, she actually created a committee for it. So she created a social media. One time she created a social media committee because I asked for it, and of course she didn't put me on it. She put the attorney who never drew a dime of business, and then she brought in the computer guy who wasn't an attorney. Whatever. Next on my list, don't make someone in charge of advertising never draw a dime business, and that goes back to that partner over there that they put on the social media committee. Participants should update their beneficiary form instead of turning their death benefit into a family soap opera, like Dallas, which I visited South Fork when I had that event in Arlington, Texas, in December. Next, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, or an advisor doesn't want to know anything about the retirement plans they work on. Next, don't let bureaucracy get in the way of making money. Sorry is just a word, and it won't kill you to say it. I've learned that in life. There are people out there. I have lost some really great relationships in my life just because the other side did me an injustice and refused to apologize for it. I would have been just happy with a sorry. Why does it bother me? Because it does. Um, that's something in my family life. One time, I was asked why something bothered me, and I said because it does. You don't need excuses as to why something bothers you. If the road if the road you took led you to this, maybe you should have taken a different road. That's to me, that's from No Country for Old Men. It's a riff off a line that Anton Chigum says in the movie, and it's a great line. Whoever said the road to hell is paved with good intentions must have been a retirement plan sponsor. Next, he was the type of guy who would lose $5 to save $1 and be happy about it. That's my buddy Manny. He would lose $5 to save $1 and he'd be happy about it. One time, our TPA got bought out by this big firm buying all these RA firms and TPAs, and one of the RA firms that we're now a sister company of, they said, well, we have these like 100 plans we'd like to give you. And Manny says, well, I don't have employees to handle it. I'm going to have to turn them down. That's Manny. Next, Facebook is a narcissist's dream. The biggest drawback about social media is that everyone has an opinion. That's also the nicest thing about it, too, sometimes when you think about it. But I think the biggest drawback is that it gives everybody an opinion. Just now, I was joking that now all of a sudden people on Facebook posting about the shooting down of the Ukrainian jet, that now people are surface-to-air missile experts. Clients who don't play aren't clients. Don't tell people how they should feel. I think that's important. Your feelings are your feelings. Their feelings are theirs. Someone else's opinion shouldn't threaten you. There's nothing wrong with differences of opinion. Just because they don't agree with that opinion doesn't make them brainwashed. That's a story coming back from my family. I had a family member who, if I disagreed with him, you're being brainwashed. No, I just have a different opinion than you do. When people think that way, it's an insecurity that they're that they might be wrong, or that you don't see it their way. And of course, you can be the greatest provider and offer the greatest service, and if it doesn't mean anything, if you can't market it properly, I've seen from time to time people have a great service, and if they can't market it properly, it's crap. Yes, I'm a beer snob, and I'm proud of it. If I go to an event and the only thing they have is Bud Light, I will not be drinking beer. No good food ever came out of Washington, D.C. I think that's a fact. I think people will say the Capitol Grill. I think that's it, but I've never been to the Capitol Grill. And Five Guys is from suburban Virginia. The fact they sell Pizza Hut, Domino's, and Papa John's in New York City is proof that there could be customers for anything. Next, don't try to think rationally what irrational people do. Next, don't use your charitable work to make a buck. The best attack is when you never see it coming. The best attack is when they never see it coming. Because if you're doing the attacking, you're seeing that it's going to come. Last but not least, now do you care? Maybe, just a little bit. That's a saying of mine from my old law school days, when I didn't think the administration really cared what was going on in the school and really caring what happened to me. So, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Aryisms. And hopefully I didn't scare you away, and you'll tune in next week where we'll talk about more stuff in the retirement plan business. It's Ary Rosenbaum saying so long and goodbye.